Welcome to another episode of Life Expressions, the podcast where real stories ignite purpose, spark growth, and inspire change. I'm your host, Charie Ilon. Today, I'm putting the spotlight on a young changemaker whose journey will leave you in awe and inspired. Meet Nafisa, the powerhouse of purpose. Nafisa is originally from Bangladesh and came to Canada in 2021 to pursue higher education during a time when life felt uncertain. Along the way, she found a renewed sense of purpose through her passion for social justice, especially in the area of accessibility and disability inclusion. She's the public speaking, policy shaping, equity driving, health system hustling force you never saw coming. By day, Nafisa is coordinating complex accessibility initiatives across BC's health sector, holding DEI at the heart of every agenda. By night and Mondays, she's a Toastmasters star, Rookie of the Year, no less, turning trauma-informed mindfulness into powerful speechcraft. A fun fact about Nafisa, she's a passionate solo traveler who has a knack for finding the coziest local cafes in every city she visits. Proof that a good cup of coffee can be a small adventure in itself. So grab your favorite brew and get ready. This is more than just a conversation. It's going to be a masterclass in courage, clarity, and change. Welcome to Life Expressions, Nafisa.
Thank you so much, Sherry. It's been a lovely experience, an opportunity for me to come here and join you for this amazing podcast that I've heard so much about on a Saturday. I cannot think about a good way of starting my weekend with you because I remember back in 2023, when I joined Telecom Toastmasters, I didn't think my life would take me to meet wonderful people like you, my mentor, Kathy, and the rest of the members on Telecom. So I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you. And the introduction was spot on. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. I hope you're having a good time.
I'm having a great time. And the pleasure is all mine of having you here on the podcast, Nafisa. Your story is nothing short of remarkable. You've achieved so much in your journey. What has been your driving force through both the highs and lows?
Wow, you make me sound like a star. And
You are.
honestly, thank you for saying that. And honestly, I'd like to think of myself as one too, because if you do not feel positive about yourself, who will? While in this journey of becoming an aspiring leader, I have seen both highs and lows. And as you invited me for today's podcast, I kept thinking about one poem that I brought with me today that is a brave space for me. So if you allow me, I am going to read a few lines from the poem. It's
Yes,
by
please.
Thank you. It's by Maya Angelou, and the title is Still I Rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dust, but still, like dust, I will rise. So that's my mantra whenever I feel overwhelmed, be it with joys or sadness. I try to go back to this poem that talks about supporting yourself, listening to your inner voice, and keep going. And like I mentioned, that's my brave space. And that poem always makes me feel grounded, keeps me going, even if I are faced with highs or lows.
You will always rise. What a
You
great
will always.
mantra. Yes. How have challenges shaped the leader and change maker you are today?
Well, that's a good question, Cherry. The challenges, I believe, challenges are something that make you a person as a whole. And I don't want to sugarcoat by saying I do not feel broken down by the challenges, the extreme ones when I face. Just for today's example, when you invited me for the podcast, I knew that I was going to be a part of it, but still I had nervous breakdowns. I was thinking I need to make it perfect. But then I told myself I had to make a choice that it does not have to be a nervous breakdown, it can be a positive breakthrough. So, my outlook of challenges is it brings the extreme out of you. However, as an individual, you get to make a careful choice whether you want the best out of the situation or the worst out of the situation. And here, I'd like to share a quick example with you. Not an
Yes.
example, it's a story. In one of my Toastmasters speeches, I shared the story that in one of my previous roles, I used to be heavily scrutinized for my thick accent, how I used to say things. I had a voice, but I realized my voice did not reach out to the people I was surrounded by in the professional setting. And I started feeling internalizing that rejection that I'm not good enough, but I had to make a pause. I had to backtrack. I had to make a careful choice that this is not a space where I want to grow and thrive. And then I left the job and moved forward to a place, to a position where my diversity, my distinctness would be appreciated. So my personal goal is be a leader and improve yourself first, challenge yourself first, so that it trickles down to the services that you provide or you return to the society, so that once you empower yourself, you get to empower other people as well who you meet during this journey.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You've just got have to embrace yourself and love your being different, love your uniqueness. And once you embrace that,
100%.
you can actually share the uniqueness in you, and people will always appreciate that. But no to naysayers, no to those who discriminate and does not or do not see the best in each one of us. As someone deeply engaged in meaningful work, Nafisa, how do you define diversity, equity, and inclusion in your own words?
Thank you for that question, Sherry, because that's a personal favorite of mine. DEI has been a contested term even now, so because of the political situation, how DEI is targeted. But personally, for me, diversity is a fact. When I look at myself in the mirror, even when we look at each other, we see the differences. As a parent, they can see that their children have different needs. Their children are different from each other. So one parent cannot support all of their children in the same way. So the very understanding of diversity is an established fact, and you cannot just shut your eyes, is something I deeply believe in. And equity to me is a combination of action and intention to create meaningful spaces for people based on their needs. For example, my partner is 6 feet tall and I'm just 4'11". So if you take us to an apple garden and give us the same tool to pick up apples, that's not equity.
Yeah.
Because he is taller than I am, and even though we have the same tools, I would not be able to explore the same opportunities as he will be able to. So equity I see is very much different from equality. It will only be an equitable space when I am given a ladder and the same tool as my husband, and then I will be able to pick up the apples and feed myself. So that's how I see the society, that there are diverse needs in the society. So who needs what, understanding that and taking an intentional approach to make those spaces is a big part of equity. And finally, inclusion is basically the decisions that we make to include the voices to amplify our experiences, the diverse experiences that we see, we get to hear on a daily basis. So to me, diversity, equity, inclusion is not just a fancy term or a social agenda. To me, DEI is respecting my distinctness.
I love that, respecting my distinctness. Have you ever had a have you ever had to challenge a space or system to make it more inclusive? And what was it like?
Wow, that's toughy. I want to give you the hardest example, but I'll just start with a simpler one. For example, I am a big advocate for diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. You have also mentioned in your introduction for me. So in reality, when people hear the word, oh, diversity, disability, inclusion, they look for physical markers. When they do not see physical markers, maybe a cane, maybe a black glass, maybe wheelchair, then they think it's not so important to support their unique needs. However, I personally believe is invisible disabilities are as crucial as visible disabilities. So
True.
one time there was in one of my previous roles, there was an applicant who came to our workplace environment and they requested for additional time to solve questions during the interview because they identified to be a neurodivergent person. So neurodiversity, let me give you a quick definition, is the different ways our brain works. Some people
Yeah.
take 15 minutes more to understand, some people take 5 seconds to understand something. So it varies from person to person. It's a cognitive aspect of human brain. So the supervisor I was working with, they had a difficult time to understand that it's a need and how to support it because of course you cannot see a person and think, "Oh, they may need extra support or they are neurodivergent," because the idea or the stigma related to disability is still very much in our society. So that was a challenging time when I had to support the applicant. Being an accessibility advisor, I had to advise, I had to do my due diligence with all the acts, with all the human rights code. And
Yeah.
at the end of that tunnel, the participant was able to get additional time. And as an individual, what I learned is do your due diligence. And even when no one listening to your voice, at least stay with the truth and just leave it the way it will fall into places. Because sometimes in a hierarchical situation, you have a voice, you can control it, and sometimes you don't. But at the end of the day, you go back to your own house thinking that you did the right thing. So that's one of the challenging moments of my life when I really had to push through. And yeah, that's the one I can think of right now.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to us so
Of
patiently.
course. But that brings to mind, I'm just curious. When you ask for that extra time for the neurodivergent applicant, did that disqualify him? Did that give him like minus points for the hiring manager, perhaps? Or did that disqualify him from getting the job?
Yeah, thank you for asking the follow up question. I believe they were not disqualified for the job interview because we are mandated by multiple acts, multiple codes, human rights codes, Accessible British Columbia Act, and those codes say that you cannot differentiate against someone based on their disability. And so while the person was given additional time, we had to do it in the back end. So they do not feel that they were given some extra chances or opportunities to we created a level playing field.
Very good.
When someone started, let's say with 5 minutes ahead of time, they started 15 minutes ahead of time, but both will end in the same time, making sure that we are supporting their needs. And the hiring manager, I understand their logic. Their logic was, I cannot see it. How am I supposed to support it? But the BC code says that if someone identifies having a disability, you listen to them, you respect them, and you give them what they need without asking probing questions, without asking what the diagnosis is, without asking, oh, this is way too much, because we have a duty to support, a duty to accommodate under the laws by British Columbia and Human Rights Code. So that's how we navigated the situation. A little bit push, a little bit reminder about the human history, the codes that we have. And I believe to my little experience that I have, we are very much supported. It's just we need to find the right voices, people to collaborate with, and to let them know what the reality is and how to make spaces by supporting each other.
That's wonderful. That's great to know. I appreciate that, Nafisa. What role do you believe storytelling or lived experiences play in advancing DEI efforts?
I think that's one of the most favorite questions of today's podcast because as a human being, I personally believe one of the profound qualities we have is the ability to storytelling, and that's how we are different from other living kinds because we are privileged to be able to share our stories, amplify our voices, leave legacies behind, and it's it's highly important to tell your stories, to let people know about your struggles, about your achievements, so that maybe you think they are not so important, but for others who look up to you, who look like you, your one story, your one challenge may inspire them to look those challenges in a different angle or to look for inspiration from your stories. And I see myself as a byproduct of generational stories. My grandmom, my mom, they are storytellers, and I want to be a strong female storyteller. So I pass it down to the future generations. So they also know as a human being, we have been given this blessing to be able to share our stories.
Yes, yeah, that's great. Nafisa, I'd love to hear about your passion project, complex accessibility initiatives across BC's health sector, and saying holding DEI at the heart of every agenda. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, thank you. No brainer. I have already talked about so much about accessibility and diversity inclusion. So that is my passion project for the role that I'm doing right now. I am working for a public serving organization, and one of our focuses is to fulfill all the mandates under the Accessible British Columbia Act. So, the simpler term to define my current passion and role is to identify barriers for people with disabilities and make better and intentional choices to create an inclusive healthcare environment, because the healthcare that we have here in Canada, that can be quite racist, that can be quite discriminatory to a certain equity denied groups. So how we can create meaningful experiences for them while removing barriers, be physical barriers, be attitudinal barriers. So that's one of my current focus with the provincial government of BC.
Yeah, I like that. Remove whatever barriers we have to have an inclusive healthcare system or services. How has your personal background influenced your work?
Here I'm going to quote another favorite line of mine, which is personal is political. And my personal journey to accessibility and disability inclusion started with a personal loss that I experienced while growing up, and mostly due to a sheer lack of awareness where I from the country where I come from. And when I came here to Canada for my master's studies, then I got more hands-on experience to work with the community, to learn about how people have diverse needs and how different forms of disabilities look like and how different forms of disabilities can be supported in their unique ways. My belief was that unless something impacts you as an individual or as a human being, we do not understand the whole impact of it. So when I experienced certain barriers that affected my functional abilities, that's when I got more passionate about this journey, that as an individual who's struggling, how I can see other people's struggles too, even if they are unseen, and how I
Yeah.
can be an active change maker to support to my best capacity. So that's how I see personal is very much connected with the political, with the professional, whatever hats we wear in our life, I see the connection.
Yeah. I hear the passion in your voice when you talk about your work, when you talk about how you want to make a positive impact. What has been the most rewarding or surprising feedback you've received from those impacted by your work?
I would not say surprising, but one of the rewarding feedbacks that I have received very recently and numerous times is good medicine. This is one of the Coast Salish teaching that our organization received from the indigenous leader Salskin. And good medicine means to have intentional choice about supporting and influencing yourself and your acquaintances in a way that they feel the positivity vibe coming from you, and you make a intentional choice not to be a bad medicine. So, time and again, when I brought the accessibility lens to my current role in the provincial government, the people I have worked with, the project collaborators, and even the patient experience side, I have heard this feedback about being a good medicine. And I believe that's one of the most beautiful feedbacks and encouraging feedbacks I have received so far.
You are a good medicine.
Thank you, Charie. So are you.
Thank you. Please share with us a time when you felt your voice or work truly made a difference.
Wow, interesting. My voice truly made a difference. First of all, I'm privileged to be able to have a voice. At the same time, I am also counting the blessings that I have been able to utilize my voice in a way that may have a little bit of impact in people's life. For example, in one of my Toastmasters speeches, I shared my life stories about how difficult my certain work experiences were. And during one speech, I particularly remember, I don't remember the title exactly, but I received four feedbacks, Jerry. And one of the feedback I still remember till this day was your experience, your speech resonated with me, and I'm planning to have a conversation with my immediate boss. And even if they don't listen to me, I'm going to take a leave because I want to make a stand against the discrimination, against the racism that I have been receiving. So I reached out to that person, wanted to make sure that they got my message right and they were not making any hasteful decision, and the follow up was amazing. I saw that they were able to have a conversation with their supervisor, and their supervisor actually acknowledged that maybe unintentionally or intentionally, they were creating a hostile work environment for them. So there was a conversation, and both of them agreed to be more flexible and supportive of each other. So when I heard that, I felt, wow, a single speech was so powerful, and that made me realize again, words has power, our voices have power, and if only if we can utilize them to amplify our diversities, to include more voices that we do not see, that we do not hear, it will be a wonderful journey
Yeah.
that we are
Yeah.
in.
That's a beautiful story. Indeed, you made a positive impact in that speech that you delivered. And I heard that speech. If you could write a letter to young Nafisa, what would it say?
If I could write a letter now to young Nafisa, I would tell her, do not fall for the trap of perfectionism. As a youngest kid in a South Asian family, always felt the pressure. I'm not blaming my parents, I'm not blaming the societal bondages, but I felt the pressure within me to prove, to try to be perfect. And until and unless something was perfect, I could not do it. So I would rewind the time if I could, and I would write a note to myself, let life surprise you or even shock you. Otherwise, you will not grow as an individual. And perfectionism is a killer of a killer. So
True.
don't try to be too perfect all the time. Take life as it goes.
Very well said. Very well said. What advice would you give her about owning her voice?
I would say not just to the younger Nafisa, but also the current Nafisa who is trying to have a breakthrough, who is an aspiring leader. I would tell her the world is your sky. So in the sky, there will be rainy days, there will be bright days. But Nafisa, you don't forget to be a bird. Remember your wings, remember your intention to fly. And if you get too close to the heat, that's fine because just like a phoenix, from ashes, you will rise.
you will rise. I love the mantra that you have shared with us. And whatever happens to you, you will always rise.
Will always rise.
Yes. And if there's one thing you could share to our listeners today to inspire them to find their voice and be courageous just to spread their positivity, what would you tell them?
For positivity, I would tell them start being positive with yourself first, because if you do not lift yourself up, no one will. In fact, most people will try to point out the negative or the low points in your life, but you have to keep reminding yourself about the high points. Even if you look in a certain way, even if you think that you are not on the center of colorism, higher education, language literacy, that's okay. Look for opportunities, look for people that you can collaborate with that will appreciate you for who you are, but that starts with you. Inclusion starts with I. So remind that to yourself always. So that's what I would like for the listeners and also for the people who will watch this video, that perhaps look at me, look at Charie, and look at those thousands individual that we see on the road while passing by, but we do not take a moment to pause and to see that all of our are heroes. We are heroes, we are winning in life, and we just need to keep reminding ourselves about that positive aspect, about that winner within us.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nafisa. What a powerful conversation. I love it. The kind that reminds us that purpose isn't something you find out there, it's something you create. One bold choice at a time. Do not be afraid to be different and appreciate your distinctness. From her journey across continents to her leadership in accessibility and inclusion, Nafisa shows us what it means to lead with both heart and impact. There's no perfection. There's just excellence and the heart to keep on doing it. Right, Nafisa?
100%. And although, just a quick note, there can be imperfections, at the same time, imperfections create opportunities for you to see which vessel you want to, and how the positivity, how positive vibe you want to spread into the world. So do not be afraid of your imperfections.
Thank you so much. Nafisa's story is a beautiful reminder that owning your voice isn't just about being heard, it's about making space for others too. To our listeners, may this episode spark something in you, whether it's the courage to speak up, the desire to challenge the status quo, or simply the inspiration to find your own cozy cafe, like Nafisa, who always loves to go to good cafes in every city she visits, and dream a little louder. Dream bigger. Do not be afraid. If you love this episode, please be sure to follow, share, and leave us a review. And remember, your story, just like Nafisa's, has the power to light the way for someone else. Thank you once again, Nafisa Nazmol. Until next time, I'm Charie Ilon, and this is Life Expressions, where every voice matters and every spark counts. Let's continue to make a positive impact wherever we are, however we can, in all that we do.